our next student. She's from Marion and attends Linn-Mar High School. She's a daughter of Trudy and Paula Gormley, and her project is Service and Support Dog Awareness Campaign.
Sit. Dance. Down. Roll over. These are all cute tricks, but in reality, this dog has a much more important job than just being a show-off. My name is Alexa, and I'm a senior at Linn-Mar High School, but I also attend Iowa Big. Iowa Big is defined as being an initiative-based high school learning experience. At Big, students discover what they are passionate about through hands-on learning and problem solving. On one of my very first days at Iowa Big last year, all of the students were asked to take out a sticky note and write down their answer to a prompt that read, "What makes you angry?" I thought about my interests. I'm extremely outspoken. I'm very passionate about politics and a big believer in social programs. I'm an animal lover, as you may be able to tell. I enjoy working with people, especially children. All of these things are extremely important to me, but they didn't really satisfy the prompt, "What makes you angry?" Now, I've been introduced to Herbert Hoover many times throughout my life. In elementary school, I was introduced to a selfless man who also happens to be the only president from the state of Iowa. In middle and high school, we were taught about a presidency that was overshadowed by the horrific events of the Great Depression. But the biggest thing that I have taken away from all of my time learning about Herbert Hoover is that he was a humanitarian. A humanitarian is defined as a person who seeks to promote human welfare, and Hoover was just that. He loved to help. He especially had a soft spot for children and tried to feed as many of the hungry as he possibly could. I believe that this is what Hoover should be best known for. Despite everything that happened during the Great Depression, he led with determination and didn't let any of the criticism get him down. Back at Iowa Big, I looked across the table at one of my closest friends. We had written down similar things as answers to the prompt, "What makes you angry?" We were both angry with the stigma surrounding mental illness, as well as the lack of mental illness education in school curriculums. As we talked about how and why all of these things made us angry, we, as usual, got distracted and began talking about her dog, Gus. The most important thing to note about Gus is that he was adopted to be an emotional support animal for my friend, as she has depression and anxiety, and having Gus has really helped to lessen some of her more severe symptoms. It was during this conversation that I decided I wanted to do something to help take away the negative stigma surrounding mental illness. I decided I wanted to create an awareness campaign that would change the way that people thought about mental illness when they heard the word. Additionally, I knew I wanted it to be a traveling campaign so that I could directly interact with the audience that I was trying to reach. Once this was decided, it was time to get started. Mental illness is often referred to as the invisible illness. According to the National Alliance on Mental Health, 1 in 5 adults in the United States will deal with some form of mental health issue during their lifetime. Additionally, in Iowa's 2015 census, it was reported that 123,000 Iowans were living with some form of severe mental illness. This statistic relates almost directly to that year's population of Iowa's second largest city, Cedar Rapids, that came in at 130,000 people. In June 2016, Iowa ranked last in mental health care access in a report released by the Des Moines Register. Many people were shocked to hear these numbers, claiming that it just doesn't seem like we have that many mentally ill people in our state. And this is where the term invisible illness comes into play. Many mental illnesses can be hidden, and many people do choose to hide their illnesses due to the negative stigma that surrounds them. Additionally, many mental illnesses come with symptoms that aren't always easily identified. Depression, for example, can present as tiredness, headaches, muscle aches, and anger, when typically this disorder is simply characterized as extreme sadness. As I began doing research for this awareness campaign, I was looking through treatments for mental illness, and dog therapy caught my eye. I thought about Gus as I read through an article about dogs visiting the mental health care wing of a hospital. I remember thinking to myself, wouldn't a therapy dog be such a cool addition to an awareness campaign? Now, many of you may not know this, but Herbert Hoover also used a furry friend to bring more positive awareness to his own campaign, but this time a campaign for the presidency of the United States. Hoover and his wife loved dogs and had many throughout their life together, but Hoover's favorite had to be the faithful German Shepherd King Tut. King Tut was used to make the shy Hoover seem more personable, and it worked. A photo of the smiling Hoover holding onto King Tut's paw was mailed out to voters all across the United States, and soon the pair moved into the White House. The connection between man and dog can be quite strong, and this is just one of many examples. Now, as for Stitch and I, we first met last October at the Cedar Valley Humane Society. He was the last one in a long row of barking dogs, and he was sitting there silently, staring up at me with those big brown eyes. I remember pointing at him and saying, "This dog, this is the one." Since then, we have been working together to become an example of a therapy dog team. When I brought Stitch home from the shelter, he knew sit, and that was about it. I started by enrolling him in Home Obedience 1 at Positive Paws Training Academy in Cedar Rapids. Trainers there helped us work through things that we might encounter as a dog and handler team. When I thought he was ready, Stitch and I took the Canine Good Citizenship test, and he passed on his first try. Then, in September, we took the Alliance of Therapy Dogs test and passed to become a certified dog and handler team. Once we were both certified, I was itching to get out and start educating. It was at about this time that our project came to what I like to call a pivot point. At Iowa Big, a pivot point refers to when a project needs to change in order to fulfill its intended goal. When I originally began this project, I thought that this program would be best effective when presented to the young adult population. But as I continued to do research, I realized that this was not the case. Many school curriculums include mental illness education, beginning in late middle school to early high school. But I found very few reports of mental illness education for elementary school students. Mental illness education is extremely important, especially for elementary school students, because many mental disorders begin to develop in young children, especially disorders on the anxiety spectrum. Many kids at this age may not know how to properly communicate what they are feeling and may not realize that what they are feeling isn't normal. And this is why education is so important. I remember quite vividly being taught about germs in kindergarten. You can't see germs, so to demonstrate, my teacher took a balloon and sprayed it with glow-in-the-dark paint to simulate a sneeze. With the lights on, we couldn't see the germs that she claimed were there. But then she turned the lights off and the balloon began to glow. This analogy has obviously stuck with me for 12 years now and is a great example of how to explain something that isn't always easily understood to children. I saw this as an opportunity to link the two unique portions of my project together. Obviously, the main goal of this campaign is to educate about mental illness and reduce the negative stigma surrounding it. But I also decided to educate about the 3 types of service and support dogs and how they can assist people with mental illness. Stitch himself has separation anxiety, so I decided to use this as a subject of a children's book, an example page that you can see right here. We are not yet using the book on the campaign as it is not quite finished, but my eventual goal is to get this book published so that it may be bought by teachers and parents to start a conversation in their own classrooms and in their own homes. Additionally, my team at Iowa Big has this year united with the Director of Mental Health and Wellness at the Horizons Wellness Center in Cedar Rapids. She has a lot of knowledge in creating programs much like the one that we are creating, and she has given us a lot of advice along the pilot stages of this program. My team and I actually made our first school visit yesterday, and it went quite well. First, the team starts off by doing a little skit talking about anxiety and PTSD, and then we move on to talking about emotional support dogs, therapy dogs, and service dogs, and how they help people with mental illness. Once the kids had some background knowledge about how mental illness could make someone feel not like themselves, they didn't seem to have a hard time making the connection on how a dog could make someone's life better. In the future, I hope to see 2 branches of this project continue. The first will stay where it originated at Iowa Big. I'm currently helping one of my fellow teammates train her own dog to become a therapy dog so that he may take Stitch's place once we are gone. Additionally, my team members will follow Stitch and I on the awareness campaign, helping us read our book and do our presentations. In the years to come, they may choose to spread awareness just as we had this year, or in whatever way they see fit. The second branch of this campaign will stay with Stitch and I and follow us to Iowa State University and to the Ames area. Stitch will be going to college with me as my personal emotional support animal, but we will also be continuing our therapy and awareness work. My goal is to unite with various organizations at Iowa State to help connect with students who may benefit from some time spent with a therapy dog. Like Hoover, my ultimate goal is to help. He has been a great role model to me throughout the duration of this project, and he has taught me to lead with determination and not let any setbacks get me down. Ultimately, I have learned more from my failures than I ever would have from any permanent success. In all, I'm extremely grateful for all of the opportunities I have been given thanks to this project. Personally, I may never have been united with Stitch if it weren't for the beginning of this program. I'm extremely grateful, and I cannot wait to see where this project goes in the future. This is something that I am extremely passionate about, and I will continue advocating for the rest of my life. I would like to thank the Hoover Presidential Foundation for giving Stitch and I the opportunity to come and speak with you all today. Are there any questions? Okay. Yeah.
In your book, what is the, maybe you don't know yet if it's not completely, if you haven't got to the final chapter in your mind, but what is the what is the main theme of your book? When a student's done reading it, what are they going to take away?
Yeah, the question was, what is the main theme of your book, and what will students or anyone who's reading your book take away from it once they are done reading it? So the book has been through its rough draft stage, so I do know what it will be like from start to finish. We are just currently working on getting it published. It begins with Stitch, who has separation anxiety, and for the sake of this book, we just call it plain anxiety. We start with him having scary thoughts coming from the shelter, and we don't really know a lot about his past, so this is a very true story. And then it moves on to what we can do. I, a concerned owner, it's told from the point of view of the dog. I, the concerned owner, take him to the vet, and then we have a conversation with the vet or his doctor to figure out what we can do to help lessen some of his symptoms. And so by the end of the book, I hope that readers will be able to understand some of the symptoms specifically of anxiety, but how they can go through the process of talking to a trusted person and then taking it to a vet or a doctor or someone who's qualified. And then in the end, it comes full circle, and we talk about how having a mental illness doesn't change who you are, but it just maybe makes life a little different for you.
You mentioned that you had a team that you went and had a first visit yesterday. Who are the members of your team?
Yeah, the question was, who are your members of your team? So at Iowa Big, we work in teams, usually between 3 to 10 people. My team consists of 4 other high school students, and when you work in teams, you have what's called a team lead, and that is the person who heads the project, kind of, is the facilitator of everything, and I also happen to be the creator of this project. So they assist me in what I need help with, so they go with me on visits, they help me with things like that. This is very much my project, but this is also very much their project. They get to experience this with me, and I am also teaching, my underclassmen teammates how to carry this project on when I am no longer there to be the team lead.
How has your visit affected the audience that you met with?
Yeah, the question was, how has your visit affected the audience that you've met with? Are you referring to the visit we had yesterday? Okay, so the visit we had yesterday was with a 3rd grade class, and we did a little skit, like I said, because you can't, stand up and present to 3rd graders. They tend to get a little wiggly. And so what we did was we first started with a skit where I was pretending to be someone with anxiety, and I actually do have anxiety, so I wasn't quite pretending, but I was acting like I was having a panic attack, and then my other teammates kind of had a discussion about what was going on, what they could do to help, and then in the end we talked about resources that the kids could do, how they could talk to their parents and their counselors, and please excuse him, he has fall allergies and is quite itchy today. Yeah. And then we did this skit, and then we talked about the 3 types of service and support dogs. And the kids really liked being able to interact, because during the presentation we asked them questions like, do you know what mental illness is? Do you know anybody in your life that has anxiety? Asking them questions, they really like to be able to tell you what they know or what they think they know. And then at the end they get to interact and spend some time with Stitch, which is always a fun part, and it makes the topic a little less scary. Standing on you, sorry.
Thank you.
All right, thank you guys.